My stomach twisted into a knot as I pressed play on my laptop. The audio file's waveform pulsed on screen as my mother's voice filled my apartment. Emma is such a disappointment. I've tried everything to fix her, but some children are just born defective. At least I have Jake. He's the only one worth the sterling name. The voice, sweet as honey when speaking to charity boards and society photographers, sliced through me with familiar precision. But this time was different. This time, her words weren't disappearing into the air between us. They were captured, preserved, undeniable. I gripped the edge of my desk until my knuckles turned white, watching the audio timeline advance. 23 years of psychological warfare distilled into 37 minutes of damning evidence. The same voice that had introduced me at debutante balls was now planning to sabotage my graduate school applications, laughing about the lies she'd told my therapist. Through the window, I could see people on the street below, living normal lives with mothers who didn't systematically destroy their children's sense of self. The distance between their reality and mine felt immeasurable. My name is Olivia. I'm 23 and I was raised by a monster who wears Chanel. This is the story of how I turned her greatest weapon, her perfectly crafted words, against her. Growing up as Victoria Palmer's daughter meant living in two parallel universes. In the public one, we were the picture-perfect American success story. My father, Robert, had built his pharmaceutical company from a small lab into a billion-dollar enterprise. My mother had leveraged that wealth into social prominence, sitting on the boards of 3 major charitable foundations and hosting galas that attracted politicians and celebrities. Our Greenwich, Connecticut mansion appeared in architectural magazines. Victoria's parenting philosophy was featured in women's magazines. When she spoke at charity events about nurturing the potential in every child, people dabbed tears from their eyes. Behind our 12-viewed privacy hedges lived a different reality. Victoria didn't just want perfect children. She needed to break us to remain in control. My earliest memories involved standing perfectly still while she inspected my appearance before guests arrived, her fingers pinching any perceived imperfection. "Stand up straight, Olivia. No one respects girls with poor posture," she'd say, digging her manicured nails into my shoulders to force them back. By age 10, I knew exactly what to expect after guests left the performance review. Victoria would sit me down and methodically dissect every social mistake I'd made. A nervous laugh, an interrupted conversation, a forgotten name. These critiques were always delivered with the same concerned expression she used when discussing underprivileged children at board meetings. "I'm only doing this because I love you," she'd say, smoothing my hair with one hand. "The world is so much harder on girls who don't know how to present themselves properly." My younger brother, Lucas, quickly learned that survival meant becoming Victoria's mini-me. 3 years younger than me, he absorbed her lessons with terrifying efficiency. By high school, he could charm adults with the same practiced warmth that disappeared when the audience left. He became her ally, her spy, reporting back on my disappointing behaviors when she wasn't watching. The summer before my sophomore year of college, I started experiencing panic attacks after hiding in a bathroom during one of Victoria's charity luncheons, gasping for breath while 50 of Connecticut's wealthiest women discussed educational inequality over poached salmon. I finally broke down and asked my father for help. Robert Palmer was brilliant at creating pharmaceuticals, but utterly lost when faced with emotional complexity. He loved us, I think, but in the abstract way someone might love the idea of having children. His strategy for dealing with Victoria's behavior was simple: avoid conflict at all costs. "Your mother just wants what's best for you," he said, not looking up from his laptop. "She had a difficult upbringing herself. You know, try to be more understanding." Understanding. As if I had spent my entire life trying to understand why my mother seemed to hate me, while simultaneously parading me around as evidence of her superior parenting skills. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving break of my senior year. I'd been accepted to Northwestern's psychology graduate program, my dream school, with a professor whose research on family trauma had given me the first framework for understanding my own experiences. When the acceptance email arrived, I felt a moment of pure joy before the familiar dread set in. Telling Victoria would be a battle. I waited until Thanksgiving dinner when my father's presence might moderate her reaction. Our dining room looked like something from a holiday magazine spread. Victoria had spent 3 days perfecting every detail, though we'd hired caterers to prepare the actual meal. "I have some good news," I said during a lull in conversation, my voice steadier than I felt. "I've been accepted to Northwestern's clinical psychology program, full scholarship." The silence lasted exactly 5 seconds. I counted them in my head. Psychology. Victoria's voice was velvet-wrapped steel. How interesting. Robert, did you hear that? Olivia wants to spend her life listening to other people's problems. I suppose that's one way to feel better about your own issues. My father glanced between us, then focused intently on cutting his turkey. Congratulations, Olivia. That's quite an accomplishment. Thank you, I said, clinging to his weak support like a lifeline. Victoria set down her wineglass with deliberate precision. Northwestern is so far away, and psychology is such a soft field. With your connections, you could work anywhere in finance or pharmaceuticals. Real industries with real impact. Psychology has real impact, I countered. It helps people heal from trauma. Her smile tightened. Trauma. Such a fashionable word these days. In my day, we called it life and got on with things instead of wallowing. Victoria, my father warned quietly. She ignored him. If you're so interested in psychology, Olivia, perhaps you should analyze why you're so determined to embarrass this family. Is it attention-seeking, rebellion, or simple ingratitude for everything we've given you? Lucas, home from his junior year at Princeton, watched the exchange with calculated neutrality, waiting to see which side would win before choosing his position. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone, I said. I'm trying to build a career I'm passionate about. Victoria laughed, the same tinkling laugh she used at fundraisers. Passion doesn't pay bills, darling. Though I suppose that doesn't matter to you since you've never had to worry about money, the privilege of being a Palmer. The conversation spiraled from there. By dessert, Victoria had moved from passive-aggressive comments to open hostility, detailing all the ways I had disappointed her throughout my life. My father retreated further into silence. Lucas eventually sided with Victoria, suggesting that my interest in psychology stemmed from my obvious emotional instability. I excused myself before coffee, retreating to my childhood bedroom, where the pink walls and trophy shelf remained frozen in time like a museum exhibit of the daughter Victoria had wanted. I sat on the edge of my bed, a strange calm replacing the usual storm of emotions. This would never end unless I ended it. The next morning, I woke early and ordered a high-quality recording device online with overnight shipping. I still had my emergency credit card linked to my parents' account, which Victoria had insisted I keep for appearances, even though she monitored every charge. This purchase would raise questions. But by then, I would be back at school away from her immediate scrutiny. For the next 8 months, I recorded everything. I made sure to visit home regularly during breaks and special occasions, knowing Victoria would be too concerned with appearances to turn me away. The voice-activated recorder captured her systematic dismantling of my self-worth, her threats to cut off my tuition if I pursued psychology, her gleeful descriptions of how she had managed my relationships with friends and potential boyfriends throughout high school. Do you really think Jacob Mitchell asked you to prom because he liked you? She laughed during one recorded conversation. His mother wanted to secure our donation to her hospital wing. I suggested you as a charitable contribution. The recordings documented her calls to Northwestern, which I overheard by deliberately staying in the adjoining room when she thought I had left for a study group. She told the department head that I had a history of fabricating stories for attention. They captured her instructing Lucas to report back on my activities at school, offering to increase his trust fund payments in exchange for information. Most damning were the conversations with her friends, where she openly discussed her methods for maintaining control over her children. I placed the recorder in her favorite sitting room before her weekly planning sessions, retrieving it afterward when the house was empty. The key is to start early, she told the wife of a state senator during a luncheon planning session. Children are like clay. You have to shape them before they harden. Olivia was always stubborn, but I found that undermining her confidence keeps her dependent. It's for her own good, really. The world is cruel to women who think too highly of themselves. I graduated with honors and moved across the country to start graduate school against Victoria's explicit threats. She followed through on cutting me off financially, forcing me to take out loans and work part-time as a research assistant. For 2 years, I heard nothing directly from my family except formal birthday cards from my father with modest checks, hidden inside his small act of rebellion. Meanwhile, Victoria's public profile continued to rise. I monitored her activities through public news sources and social media, where her carefully curated image remained intact. She was appointed to a presidential commission on family welfare, She gave a TED Talk on raising resilient children in a challenging world that received standing ovations. People magazine featured her in their Women Who Changed the World issue, highlighting her work with disadvantaged children. The irony was almost too perfect. I spent months organizing the recordings, selecting the most revealing 37 minutes from hundreds of hours. I verified the audio's authenticity with a forensic specialist, using part of my student loan money to pay for the service to ensure it could be dismissed as manipulation. Then I created a comprehensive document contextualizing each clip, explaining the circumstances and providing supporting evidence, emails, text messages, testimonials from former household staff who had witnessed her behavior. I had maintained contact with several staff members who had been kind to me growing up, reaching out to them through social media with specific details only someone from the household would know. 3 days before Victoria was scheduled to receive a humanitarian award for her work with children's charities, I launched my counterattack. I created a website called The Real Victoria Palmer with a simple black and white design. At the top was a professional photograph of Victoria from her most recent magazine feature smiling benevolently beside the quote, "A mother's love is the foundation upon which children build their lives." Below it, I placed an audio player with a 7-minute compilation and a simple statement. This is the real Victoria Palmer, in her own words. I sent the link to select journalists who had previously covered Victoria's philanthropic work, to the boards of the charities she led, and 2 key figures in her social circle. I found their contact information through public websites, professional directories, and social media profiles. I included a brief factual email explaining who I was and what the recordings contained. Then I waited. The response exceeded even my expectations. Within hours, the website had thousands of visitors. By evening, it had been shared across multiple social media platforms. Local news picked up the story first with the careful headline, "Humanitarian's Daughter Releases Disturbing Audio Recordings." Victoria's first response was to claim the recordings were fabricated, a desperate attempt by her troubled daughter to damage her reputation. But the forensic authentication made that defense collapse quickly. Her second strategy was to play the victim, giving a tearful interview about the challenges of raising a child with emotional difficulties and how she had always tried her best. That narrative imploded when 3 former household employees came forward to corroborate my account, describing how they had witnessed Victoria's psychological abuse and been fired when they expressed concern. The most significant blow came from an unexpected source. Lucas, who had been Victoria's faithful accomplice for years, finally heard the full extent of her manipulation through the recordings. He found my new number through our father and called me for the first time in 2 years. His voice unrecognizable through tears. "I didn't know," he kept saying. I knew some of it, but I didn't understand how bad it was. "The things she said about you when you weren't there, live, I'm so sorry. I should have protected you." His public statement supporting my account and detailing his own experiences as Victoria's golden child destroyed her last line of defense. No one could dismiss both children as troubled or attention-seeking. The fallout was swift and comprehensive. Victoria resigned from her charity positions within a week. The humanitarian award was rescinded. Her TED Talk was removed from the organization's website. Social invitations dried up overnight. My father finally found his courage in the wake of public opinion. He filed for divorce, admitting in private that he had enabled Victoria's behavior through his silence. He called me directly to apologize and asked for my new address, which I provided after some hesitation. During the proceedings, his lawyers discovered that Victoria had intercepted and hidden acceptance letters from other graduate programs I had applied to, along with scholarship offers and professional opportunities. The woman who had built her identity on being admired was suddenly facing universal condemnation. The carefully constructed image she had maintained for decades crumbled in days. 6 months after the recordings went public, I received a letter from Victoria. She had obtained my address from my father during their contentious divorce proceedings. The handwriting was perfect as always, each letter formed with the precision she had demanded from me during childhood penmanship lessons. "Olivia," it began without the usual, "dearest," she used in public correspondence. "I hope you're satisfied with what you've done. You've destroyed everything I spent a lifetime building. I suppose I should have expected this level of cruelty from you. You never did appreciate the sacrifices I made to give you a perfect life. I did my best with what I had. Someday when you have children of your own, perhaps you'll understand that parenting isn't the simple matter you seem to think it is. Some people aren't meant to be mothers. I was one of them, but I tried anyway. That should count for something. No apology, no acknowledgement of the pain she had caused. Just a final attempt to rewrite the narrative and position herself as the victim. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my life without the shadow of Victoria's manipulation hanging over me. I excelled in my graduate program, specializing in family trauma and narcissistic abuse. My own experiences, while painful, gave me unique insight that my professors and clinical supervisors recognized as valuable. Lucas and I developed a real sibling relationship for the first time. He transferred to a university closer to me for his final year, and we began meeting regularly for coffee. He entered therapy to address the damage Victoria had caused and the guilt he carried for his role in my abuse. We learned to trust each other slowly, carefully, with the awareness that healing family bonds takes time. My father made halting attempts at reconciliation, funding my education, and offering financial support. Money was the language he understood best, and while it couldn't erase decades of enablement, I accepted it as a form of reparation that would help me help others. We established a monthly phone call that gradually evolved into a more genuine relationship. As for Victoria, she retreated from public life entirely. The divorce was finalized within a year, with my father retaining most of their shared assets. The last I heard, she had moved to Florida and attempted to reinvent herself in a new social circle, only to have her past follow her when potential friends inevitably searched her name online. The recordings that destroyed Victoria's reputation are now used in psychology courses as case studies in covert abuse. My doctoral dissertation on the long-term effects of narcissistic parenting has been published in major journals and integrated into training programs for family therapists. I don't take pleasure in Victoria's downfall. That would require caring about her in ways I no longer do. What I feel instead is freedom. Freedom from gaslighting and self-doubt. Freedom from the constant effort of trying to earn love from someone incapable of giving it. Victoria spent 23 years trying to convince me that I was fundamentally flawed and unworthy. In the end, her own words captured in perfect digital clarity revealed who was truly broken. Today, I lead a research team studying early intervention strategies for families showing signs of narcissistic abuse patterns. We develop resources for school counselors, pediatricians, and family courts to recognize the subtle signs that took me years to understand. Every time our work helps a child escape the situation I endured, I feel another piece of my own history transform from trauma into purpose. The woman who gave birth to me spent decades using words as weapons. She never imagined those same words would eventually set me free. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do,